सभी सुखी हो, सभी निर्मल हो, सभी परस्पर अच्छे व्यवहार में रहें और किसी को दुख न हो। ओम शांति शांति First, I am giving brief introduction of Shri Mayank Upadhyay. Mayank Upadhyay, Secretary, Industry Union Society. Mr. Mayank Upadhyay is Trustee and Secretary of Indian Society of Community Education, Ahmedabad, Managing Trustee of New Class Trust. He has many degrees, SCWAI post. He has a vast experience of different fields. He had started banking related operations from Central Bank of India. He has done hard work to revive NTC Gujarat and GITCO also. He has provided long-term financial to small and medium-scale micro enterprises as it is senior manager. He has vast experience of many organizations and he is going to give management consultancy to many projects since 1994. As like UNIDO, UNIDO, World Bank, Islamic Development Bank, JDU, Malaysia, and other organizations. So he has vast experience and that's how we listen his thoughts and other things. Thank you. Please, thank you.
Very one and all. Dr. Mandaran, all the directors of our network organizations, all the staff members of network organizations, and all other invited guests and speakers. We are meeting here after a gap of 2 years. This 37th experiment of cooperative self-learning has started has achieved a lot of success so far. Last year was the one which was affected by a small little tiny invisible microorganism virus called as corona, COVID-19, that affected everybody's life, all of us, in one way or other. What many of us might have lost their near and dear ones. And that virus has spoken. That virus has spoken aloud. And it has made all of us start
Too much echo on the virtual.
the human development, human race is trying to develop. And the course of development it took required some kind of thinking, some kind of moderation, some kind of path changing, and the collective wisdom thought of developing an alternative for that development which we captured in the name of sustainable development goals. Previously it was something different. So this developed when we add an adjective to this the development and that adjective is sustainable, it makes us think that the development which we normally pursue is not sustainable, that we have to add an adjective like sustainable. And the world has started thinking in that direction that yes, that development needs to be achieving not only some focused areas, but must have broader agenda before it. And we will pursue that. In this very workshop, in this very conference, we have discussed in the past about SDGs. CAS has been kind enough to, rope in the services of Dr. Nityananda and CDSD to prepare a manual for NGOs to work on different sustainable development goals. And in between came this corona pandemic. The pandemic requires some kind of brainstorming, some kind of thinking on the part of those who are involved in the daunting task of development. And here we are for 2 days in 8 sessions. We will be discussing about the impact, the responses, and the prospects of SDGs in the backdrop of COVID-19 or corona pandemic. Many goals have been adversely impacted. Health and education, poverty and employment, they are at the forefront, but many others are also there. So while devising the schedule for this program, we kept all these aspects in mind. Sort of faculties that would give us something to carry home and think about and practice on. And we approached them. Some of them were busy, couldn't come. Many of them readily agreed because we had gas with us. But coming here was a problem for many of them. So majority of them have chosen to interact with us for this conference. So we may have to accept this invitation. I hope you will understand this invitation and will take full advantage of their speech, which they would be giving to us virtually. However, some of the speakers have so very kindly accepted our invitation to come here in person, be with us, and address us. So that way the schedule has been prepared, developed, and it is there for all of us. You have that in your also. Inauguration or keynote address will be given by Dr. Anil Gupta. He is an Ahmedabad-based management teacher initially, but later on diverted to development and is known. He will be properly introduced by my colleague, Professor Pushpaben Motnyani, when he will be invited to address this gathering. So, this backdrop, we will be meeting. We will be here for 2 full days. The venue chosen is quite palatial in true sense, and exclusive, and therefore we will all enjoy here, enjoy the company of everybody, enjoy the tranquil of this particular place, the real princely kind of an ambience and environment that we all will enjoy. Please enjoy your stay here and take the full advantage of this conference. I hope you all will carry home something to learn, something to practice at home. So we, before I request Peter Rimele, the chief patron of this JSDP and resident representative of India, I will request you all that please follow the schedule. Come to the hall on time and observe all the time. While in the session, please keep your instruments, mobile or whatever, in a silent mode. Thank you well. Welcome you all again.
Thank you, Mayank. As we know, all of we are very much familiar to him. He is pioneer member of caste family. I think no need to give more introduction. Please, सूर्य को दिया दिखाना जैसे बात होती. You understand, sir? Maybe I am not taking more time. It is better to listen you, sir. I call upon Mr. Peter Rimele. Please, sir, give introductory remarks of today's program.
Dear friends, ladies and gentlemen, before we had the sustainable development, we had the millennium development. We always find the earth development. Now, if you look at it, what do we understand? Most people will have a positive conclusion. Somehow going ahead. It's going forward. And that is probably what's intended, unless we speak of political development, then we are not always sure it's going ahead, but it's a different issue. That we are meeting today, that we are able to be visiting again, it's also part of development. Half a year ago or a year ago, it would have been very difficult. So already, despite the noises of the COVID pandemic, there is development that we can meet again, that we can continue with our work with limitations, but still it's development, it's going ahead. We really have a development as far as the implementation of the SDGs is concerned. Let's have a look at the UN 2021 Sustainable Development Goals report, what was just presented recently. I was presented with a clear picture of the severe impact that the pandemic has had and will continue to have on the possible achievement of our SDGs. 120 million people have been pushed back into poverty and chronic hunger. The equivalent of 250 million full-time jobs have been lost, and global extreme poverty rose for the first time since 1998. Of course, we have to question, do we have development? In the face of such facts and figures, we cannot gloss over the reality that is decades of development work have been nullified by a virus so small that it's invisible to the naked eye. In the current context, the 2030 agenda as promised, there won't be it sounds like living in developing countries around the globe. Given there are 5 billion vaccines administered, around 75% of people just have countries, but it's easier. While there are already extensive discussions and talks about booster vaccines in the US, but also in Germany, and the entire African continent, and only about 3% of the population fully vaccinated. You see, there is a large gap, and the SDGs are worldwide goals. They're not by continent. Only 3% of the population in Africa fully vaccinated, and just they didn't receive sufficient doses of vaccines. Even down to a more individual level, it's the poorest continue to be at greater risk of contracting the virus and additionally are burdened with the largest negative economic impact. The pandemic has brought all these inequalities to light and even exacerbated them, creating a worrisome state of affairs with respect to the attainment of the SDGs and by extension the health. But despite all these negative, the pandemic could still serve as a sorely needed wake-up call for policymakers around the world. And as you can see, before the virus has spoken, it also has spoken in that witness in the form of a wake-up call. So it is and could be understood as a wake-up call for policymakers to get the SDGs back on track and use the economic recovery to pursue low carbon, it's not working, not loud enough. I'm supposed to shout. So to pursue low carbon, resilient and inclusive development pathways that reduce carbon emissions, conserve natural resources. That's what we're trying to do, because our objective is largely running on solar panels, and according to the management, they're feeding it more into the grid that they take out at peak time. So at least let's have the good feeling that we contribute to conserve natural resources by using solar energy. Create better jobs, basically put the green in our daily lives, advance gender equality, and address growing inequalities. But ladies and gentlemen, instead of just looking back at our losses, I would like to seize the opportunity of delivering today's introductory remarks to move forward. And that's why we're here. We're looking forward. We try to understand the crisis as chances and not only looking backward what losses we have. So we discuss the prospects of the SDGs, how we together can indeed and must solve the challenges that have been exposed and created by the pandemic in order to achieve our common target, the 2030 agenda. The pandemic has taught us that virtually all over the major challenges of the century are global ones, as the world is more interconnected than ever before. The worldwide economic, social, and political recovery from COVID-19, as well as overcoming arguably the greatest challenge of our century, the climate crisis, will demand coordinated and comprehensive international action based on sound data and science and guided by the sustainable goals. We have to realize that the pandemic has offered us an opportunity. That's what I want to focus on. We can always continue whining about the losses and what could have gone better, but we face the reality. Let's look at what opportunities does this pandemic offer for us to improve what we're doing and to move forwards to more sustainable consumption and transition to a green economy. Something that has completely escaped our attention in recent decades. It will now be up to our policymakers to put this insight into practice and build up ever more large-scale multilateral support networks focused on the SDGs in order to tackle the global challenges that are ahead of us. And I think India has done a great step on that when it invented together with France the International Solar Alliance, and that is worldwide. I remember how Prime Minister Modi said, one sun, one world, one grid. I mean, with the one grid, looking at the geography of Pakistan as neighbors and so on, maybe that will be a long time to come. But let's think worldwide that this one grid leads to interdependency being lowered and leaves probably to more progress. So the idea is great, and India was a front runner of that, and I hope also that the reality will catch up with the great idea. Moreover, when effective global crisis response, we might actually be able to foster the SDGs more strongly than would have ever been possible prior to the pandemic. This applies in particular to the provision of quality essential health services. With the images of collapsed healthcare systems still haunting our minds, just thinking back to May, public pressure on governments around the world to invest more in the health sector, as well as in other essential services such as education and sanitation, has arguably never been stronger. Many governments around the globe have responded by subsequently investing heavily in these sectors, thereby accelerating the universal provision of such quality basic services and contributing to the achievement of the SDGs. But when I was talking here more of the macro level, how the world is interconnected, we of course have to come down what can we contribute to that one, and then we come down to our level, very often also called the grassroots level, and that is where all of you, all the NGOs are mostly working. Ladies and gentlemen, let us be clear about one fact, and that is that policymakers can make all the well-intended policies that they want to, but nothing will change. If you, the catalysts of change, are not involved in sensitizing the grassroots towards their responsibilities in attaining the SDGs, it has to be in the nature of a movement that starts at the grassroots. As the JSDP is and has always been all about the work of NGOs, I cannot stress enough on how crucial your contribution has been in bringing about positive social and political changes and will be in the future. Without your mobilization and awareness raising efforts, this increased government investments would simply not have been possible. And that was also the idea that we were together to develop something for you as a tool you can use to implement the SDGs on your grassroots level. And of course, policymakers have to be involved. So also with the looking at what is the idea of NITI Aayog, I'd like to welcome a representative of NITI Aayog among us. We were looking at what is India's goal and how can it be translated down to the grassroots level with that manual one is working on as a tool for training the trainers, that policy is not somewhere defined as a nice piece of paper but not implemented, but on the grassroots level you have some guidance from national policies and transfer it to your level, that in the area you live in, the people you're living, you can contribute to improve and hopefully get nearer to achieving the SDGs. We have not addressed all of them, but some of them in the fields where we are working. In this context, the continuation of such investments, as well as the development of multilateral efforts to support the whole out of essential health services in impoverished countries, will be crucial to the achievement of the 2030 agenda in the next years to come. Hereby, once again, national governments will have to work closely with networks like ours, operating on the ground to prevent funds from being misallocated or even wasted. The NGOs know how, on launching, implementing, tailor-made, an effective program based on the reality on the ground will prove crucial for the success of multilateral efforts to provide development assistance to developing world for the achievement of the SDGs. Let me conclude. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to assure you that our gruesome pandemic experiences has given us a fresh impetus and a new approaches to invigorate our common goal of achieving SDGs. So if the virus has spoken, let's listen, let's see how we can transfer that into a better world. Yet the success of such endeavors will depend on whether we have truly learned our lessons from these experiences. as it's quite apparent and positive that we have indeed learned and acted upon several of these lessons. After all, no one has ever learned their eyesight by looking on the bright side. Too many have preached pessimism in recent times without trying to find solutions to the problems that can them down. I'm confident that this year's JSDP will avoid this pitfall and instead provide us ideas, concepts, and frameworks that will offer solutions, will help you to implement them on your level, and will prove that we can hope on our long road towards achieving the SDGs. Now, without further ado, I would like to give the floor to my dear colleague, Dr. Anil Gupta, for his comments. Thank you.
This is things are very useful and very we have to think on those things, whatever you have to systems. We have to take that in peace studies. So we are teaching that world is facing maldevelopment, conditions due to overdevelopment and underdevelopment. So, Professor, I want to include my views. Professor Goylet defined the development. He told there should be 3 dimensions in the development, that is life sustains, life esteem, and freedom. So, sir, when we will fulfill these 3 conditions, then after we can achieve the appropriate development. Just now, I am inviting Professor Anil Gupta for keynote address by this program. I am giving his brief introduction. Professor Anil Gupta is an Indian scholar in the area of grassroots innovations. He is the founder of the Honey Bee Network. He retired as a full-time professor at the Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad in 2017, where he served for about 36 years. He is visiting faculty at the institute now. He held an executive vice chair at the National Innovation Foundation, where he is a member of its governing board. Now he is also a fellow of the World Academy of Art and Science. He was awarded the Padma Shri Award in 2004 for his contributions to management education. He is seen as a pioneer in the field of grassroots, as Mr. Peter told. We need to work on grassroots level. So he has done many innovations on grassroots, in which his contribution includes documenting people's knowledge with the help of the teams of the volunteers and spread across India. Gupta is known for crafting innovative courses for students at the Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad. One of his most popular courses included Shodh Yatra, under which he took management students to different parts of the country to learn from local communities and study their knowledge systems. He is usually come to Gujarat Vidyapith, which founded by Mahatma Gandhi in 1920. And we have 70% students from grassroots level. So he is giving some message, some things to them and question answer with them. So I invite Dr. Anil Gupta, please. We are waiting for your keynote address. Sir, please start your address. Shri Dr. Anil Gupta.
Namaskar, good evening. Thank you so much, my dear friends. Vrunda Bhen, the chair of KS Foundation, and all other friends present today. I'm sorry that I'm not physically with you, but thanks to the technology, I can reach you. And what I'm going to talk about is the way pandemic created or generated a lot of paradoxes and gave us an opportunity to redefine or perceive our role in achieving SDGs. And I'll begin with one of the most important paradoxes. And later I will show you the examples of how some of the grassroots level school teachers have overcome that constraint that I'm going to talk about. So as you know that around 50% children in our country do not have access to smartphone or internet. Their parents can't afford it. So during the last year and a half, when education was online, they have been out of it. Now a question arises, and I would ask this question to everybody, as policymakers, ourselves, educationists, everyone. How difficult it was to imagine this problem. And how could we live with this exclusion of the poorest, because the children in the government school generally are from the poorest families. And if these children, and I have taken this issue up at the Niti Aayog level and the other levels, so I have no hesitation in admitting or at least confessing that I did try to let people know that there are solutions, but we did not try them at a scale large enough to be able to overcome this inertia. So if we want poverty alleviation, then we have to educate our children and help them to grow themselves and help their communities to grow in generating more opportunities for themselves and for others. Education is a very important part. And I know Vrunda Bhen has devoted all her life, and her father Ramlal Parikji devoted all his life to Gandhian values in education, which is very inclusive education. Now, I will begin with that and try to bring you some lessons of frugal innovation for sustainable future through inclusive innovation. And I would argue that we need to mobilize both social and ethical capital. Of course, intellectual capital, natural capital are important, but social and ethical capital are very important. Social capital refers to the trust, reciprocity, and third-party sanction. That is, when behavior of a person who's not following the desirable social norms can be sanctioned by some third party on the street in the system, then that is called social capital. So when migrants were coming back and facing difficulties, people who empathize with that and contributed to alleviation of the suffering obviously use their social capital to help people who are in distress. Ethical capital is when you don't get sanctioned by external actors, but your sanction is from within. You punish yourself. The Gandhiji gave a very strong importance to voluntary suffering. Whenever there was something wrong that would happen in the country, he would punish himself. He will go on fast. And that is ethical capital. He was not mobilizing only social capital. He was saying there is something lacking in my character, which has led to such a problem, whether it was Chori Chora or whatever other incident that happened during freedom struggle. He would punish himself, not others. So we need both kinds of capital. Capital which requires external sanctions against a behavior which is not responsible, which is not acceptable. But more importantly, ethical capital, where we regulate our behavior ourselves. And if there is injustice, if there is inequity, if there is something indifference, then we intervene there. And that is what the Honeybee Network has tried to do. So a nameless, faceless person comes in contact with the network, gets an identity. So when we started this journey way back 35 years ago, it occurred to us that intellectuals are no different in terms of exploitation of people than other actors in society. We collect information from the people, we write, we publish, we become famous, we get consultancies, we get money, and nothing of it often goes back to the people whose knowledge made us popular, made us famous, made us achieve all the distinctions in our life. So surely we are no less an exploiter than other actors, maybe moneylender, maybe trader, maybe landlord or whosoever. So what are we trying to do? We are trying to give voice, visibility, and velocity to the creative and innovative people in formal and informal sector. And I invite you all to be a bee. What does bee do? Honeybee does cross-pollination. Can we connect community to community? If there is something useful from our database, all databases are open. I'll tell you about that. Honeybee.org, you will find several databases. All of them are open access. No password required, no user ID required, no permission required from anybody. They're open access. And some of them are in 4 languages: Hindi, Gujarati, Tamil, and English. So you can see them, read them, use them wherever you wish, whosoever you want to share. So that is first condition, that are we creating knowledge public goods? How much are we downloading and how much are we uploading? How much of knowledge are we sharing with the society? And I would ask all of us to reflect on our conduct. Let's say in last 1 month, how much did I share with others? My mistakes, my learning, my insights from the people or from whosoever, and how much did I download? You will agree with me, most of you will agree with me, that we download a lot, we upload less. And that is not a sustainable future. Unless and until we share more than we seek, society cannot be fair and cannot be just. So I would suggest that we do cross-pollination of ideas, we share more than we seek. And if we learn something from people, we don't make them anonymous, we give them due credit. And if any value is generated and any returns, commercial returns accrue to us, we should share a reasonable share of that with the people. So I'm going to try to change the context of our dialogue today. And I'm arguing that when we use language, please try to remember that language shapes the habit of thought. Many times, many of us, rather carelessly, I would say, have been using the term bottom of the pyramid. What does it mean? Does it mean that poor people are at the bottom of all pyramids? No, they are at the bottom of economic pyramid. But when it comes to knowledge pyramid, creativity pyramid, ethical pyramid, institutional pyramid, they may be at the top. So how do we try to use language which does not disempower people, which does not distract our attention from the resources in which poor people are rich? Very important. Because then we will disown our responsibility. No, they're poor not because of us. Of course they are poor, because we have not done our job well. We have not contributed enough to overcome the poverty. We have not suffered enough voluntarily, as Gandhiji advised us. And therefore our value system doesn't get shaped. So let us look at how we do that. So we do show the outcomes. We walk in different parts of the country. We have walked in every state, from Andaman to Gorej Valley in Kashmir, from all northeast in every state, some more than once. And we learn from the 4 teachers: teacher within, teacher around in the peer, teacher in nature, and teacher among the common people. People who struggle, people who strive. Sometimes some of them are able to solve problems very creatively. And interestingly enough, majority of the people who solve problems creatively are very generous in sharing them with others. You might say, sir, that if such is the case, then why are they still poor? Well, that is because our institutions, our markets are not fair. So if I ask you, how many of you purchased, in Northeast, almost every house in most states have a handloom, has a weaving tradition. So if I ask this question, how many of us have bought some piece of handloom fabric from Northeast in the last 1 year or 2 years or 5 years? Answer would again be, not many may have done it. So whose mistake is this? Not the weavers, who weave very well. Women will create a loom just around their waist, they will tie it, and with a tree, they will start weaving anywhere they want. Very flexible system of loom. A lot of beautiful colors and designs. Maybe they are not suited to our taste because we have not given them our preferences and our design. That's our mistake, not theirs. They're doing their job well. So if markets, as you know, may not monitor the misery, we need to monitor it ourselves and identify the gaps, the unmet needs and unmet gaps. in the supply chain, in the economic system, in the social system, which need to be bridged. So I will not blame them if they are not able to reach us. I'll blame ourselves if we are not able to reach them and able to get these services. Frozen flights of imagination. One of the paradoxes is that, again, SDGs, which are very important for achieving, for their resolution, for their achievement, for overcoming poverty, for generating employment, for giving security and identity to women, all of those, water conservation, etc. If we are still behind in achieving many of them, then partly it is because of the imagination, which is not fertilized enough. And therefore, our flight of imagination needs to be unleashed. We need to fly and imagine. Why does it happen? It happens because we are having a lot of knowledge. Knowledge is expanding enormously every day. The feelings about what we know are reducing. And our action, doing on those feelings, is even lesser. So we know so much, we feel this much, and we act only this much. My first appeal today is that, can we make this ratio different? Can we change the shape of the triangle? Can we make it trapezoid? Can we make it a square? I don't know. There's something we need to do. Maybe trapezoid might be more fair because we can't make it a square. We can't act on all knowledge that we have. We can't feel about everything that we observe. I agree with that. Even I cannot do that. But we can feel little more than what we do. And we can act little more. You know, there are two terms I always would like us to remember. One is autonomy. Second is agency. Autonomy is freedom to make decisions. All of us have autonomy. Agency is willingness or ability to use that freedom. That is where we lack. We don't lack autonomy, we lack agency. And who will give this agency? We ourselves will give ourselves agency. If I decide that I have to act on some knowledge that I have and I will feel strongly about it, and my motivation will emerge that I will take action on that. And I'll show you an example. So one of the ways in which this happens is samvedana. Now it's not exactly translated as empathy. Empathy is for others. Samvedana is within. Some means equal. Vedana means pain. When I experience the pain of others as intensely as they experience it, it doesn't remain their pain, it becomes my pain. So in Sanskrit or Hindi, we call it Swantah Sukhay, for my own happiness. I'm trying to convert samvedana into sajanshilta, empathy into innovation. I'm not doing a favor to anybody. I'm overcoming my own pain inside me, which is caused because I'm experiencing it, what other people face it. So that is, let me take an example. For some of you might be working in forest communities, the tribal people. And mahua is one of the very important food that they process. They are using this stone to crack it, to take the kernel out from which they extract oil, which they use in their home. Now, this is about 10,000-year-old technology that they're using, maybe more. We couldn't develop a good mahua nutcracker. We can send 100 satellites, 104 satellites in a single launch in different orbits. That is the capability we have. We can send a mission to Moon and Mars. So there's no doubt that our society has enormous technological capability. How come then these problems don't appear to us? As we say in Hindi, dikhta hai, dukhta nahi hai. We see these problems, but they don't cause us pain. And there are a large number of such examples. So we have to mobilize this. And I'm just giving a small example of how do we analyze developmental vulnerability. So if you look at this, and ask this question, who is more vulnerable? The one who has narrow choices. So there is one dimension, decision-making time frame, narrow or wide. On the other side, we have time frame, short or long. If in short term, we have very narrow choice, I have only goat, or I have only poultry, or I have only weaving, they have only one enterprise on which I'm depending, then I'm very vulnerable. But if I have a lot of opportunity, I'm being very opportunistic, trying many things, exploiting a lot of resources. It's not sustainable, but I might make some money in the short term. I may cut the trees, I may sell them off, but it will impair long-term sustainability. If I have only one choice and long-term, then I'm most vulnerable. But if I have long time frame and lot of choices, sustainability can be achieved. That's our job. How to widen the choices, how to expand the portfolio of choices for economically poor people, and how to extend their time frame. You see, if you grow fast-growing species, they may mature in 5 years. But I have to get my daughter married after 18 years. And I need to plant slow-growing species, maybe tamarind, maybe some other species like that, which will grow slowly. And maybe it will mature at around 18, after 18 years, 20 years for harvest. And at that time, I would need money to get my daughter married off, and I will get a lump sum. If I were to save, I can't save it. So sustainability requires making choices of species, choices of sectors, choices of spaces where I allocate these resources in such a manner that I can have cash flow at the time when I would need for meeting my family needs, educational needs of my children, health needs of my family, as and when they arise. Now let me give you a story of Gandhiji. So in 1960, Gandhiji asked Vinoba Bhave, hey, how much earning will a person make if he uses the charkha that he was very fond of promoting? And he said 2 annas, very small income. Gandhi realized that this had to be significantly more. Hence, he announced an open challenge to design an improved charkha in 1920. And there were not many resources. He wrote to the inventors of improved spinning wheel, February 25, 1920, and the competition will end on 31st March. Gandhiji will be judged. He will be supported by experts. The amount of the prize was just 5,000. He received number of machines, but none of them were suitable. The criteria for the award was changed. You should do 5 times more work than the common checker. Again, they received 5, 6 ideas. None met the stated quality. Gandhi was frustrated. He received number of machines, none of them satisfying his criteria. What does he do? Now look at this. A leader like Gandhi gets frustrated, has no solution in mind, does something remarkable. He announces a global competition, 24 July 1929. And this time the award is 7,700 pounds, which is 1 lakh rupees. Now let's ask ourselves, and I would request KS to think about it. Why don't we announce challenge awards for solving persistent problems of the people with whom we work? Anybody can offer solution, and let us give award to them. Let us allocate at least 10 to 15, 20% money of developmental expenditure for organizing these challenge awards. We will help you. Gandhiji announced it 1929, 1930, when he was in the Wardha jail. He was using this charkha. Vrindaban may know more about it. The question is, it met all the conditions. If you go to our website, gyti.wikipedia.in/announcement, you will find the whole announcement that he said. He was such a good designer of the challenge. He gave boundary conditions, what kind of solution he wanted, how much maintenance cost should be there, how much should be the weight, what could be the, what kind of ponies it should make, how many yards it should be, spin in a day, what count. All of this is specified. And it should be portable. It should be easy to move from one place to another. It should not cause drudgery. Particularly ladies should not get tired after using it for 5 to 6 hours. The solution came about. Challenge award work. 1929. Today is 2021. How many challenge awards we have had? The value of 7,000 pounds at that time, or 1 lakh rupees at that time, would be about 10 crores today. We don't have even an award of 1 crore or 50 lakh for that matter to solve our social problem with which we have continued to live. Bahua Nutcracker does not require 50 lakh award. It will require maybe 10 lakh award, maybe 5 lakh award. Somebody will develop it, surely. But we did not try. We did not try. So the question is, why did this Gandhian legacy of overcoming persistent inertia not continue? Why do so-called impact fund avoid engagement with real unmet need? Inertia of 90 years? No inertia of millennia. And I hope, I pray that we will get disturbed today. We will become uneasy with ourselves and our programmatic consciousness that we will think about this problem, that we will not live with the problem unsolved. Look at all these problems. They're all unmet. Transplantation of paddy in a back-bending posture, plucking of tea leaves in Northeast Sikkim, in high hills. She plucked the leaf, put it behind the basket, and hand moves against the gravity. If you do that 10 times with me, you will find pain here and here. She does it 2,000 times, 3,000. When we take a cup of tea, do we experience that pain? We don't. We don't. This chula, this stove has hardly 14% or 15% combustion efficiency. You double it, the woman will have to walk half the distance to collect firewood. You treble it, much less distance, much less firewood, less carbon footprint, better for the environment, better for the global warming also. Doesn't happen that way. These are the looms I was telling about in handloom. In almost every house of the Northeast. No value addition, no design improvement. So we need to ask, let me give you an example where sometime, though good intentions are not enough, they can work wonders if we convert intentions into actions. So this is a hand pump. Most of you have seen hand pump. When you drink water, a lot of water spills over because the output of 1 inch diameter, 1.5 inch diameter cannot be held in our hands when we drink water. So what did two innovators do? One of my students, Chandar, another innovator, Swayambhu Sharma from Rajasthan, gave 2 ideas. Another 2 innovators, Vishwakarma and Yusuf, made this 100 rupees retrofitting solution where you have smaller tap for drinking, bigger for filling bucket, and if water is still spilled over, it will go into this trough for animal to drink. So what are we saying? Inclusive innovation, not just inclusivity of human beings, inclusivity of non-human sentient beings, the bird, the squirrel, the cattle. We need to have inclusivity of animals too, not just human beings. They are part of our life. They need water too. So the question is, if we define inclusivity broadly, then we will start seeing a share of them in our lives. Some of you may know that in our country, we have a tradition, which is a slowly dying tradition, but still it is there. At least in my family and many of your families may be there. The first bread that you cook, you don't eat it yourself. You feed it to the bird, dogs, cattle, whosoever. So when I get up in the morning, I have to feed the birds and squirrels in my home. That's a daily routine. It gives me joy. I see them enjoying their breakfast. Brings me happiness. They are happy. Nothing is lost. 1 piece of bread we can easily afford. So question is, how do we create new rituals or revive old rituals which make us remember every day? Every day. I have to practice it every day because we tend to forget things. Now, there's a great, Gandhiji emphasized the practice more than the preaching. Because he realized that no matter how strong the value system is, if you don't practice it every day, you might forget. He was aware of that. That inertia seeps in so quickly, we don't even realize that we have forgotten. So we have to practice some of the values every day. These are different kind of drills we found in Assam, Dhimaji, that we had gone for show yet. Different kind. Within one village, we found all of that for carving wood. Now, surely they can be improved, but the paradox is that when we do it manually, we transfer energy from big wheel to small wheel. When we do it mechanized way, motorized, we do small wheel to large wheel. If there is no electricity or regular electricity, obviously we'll have to rely on mechanical solutions. Not everybody can afford a diesel motor. So please appreciate that we can't abandon all manual solutions completely just because they seem to be archaic. If in some places we cannot bring energy, other sources of energy, we'll have to possibly improve them. Maybe put a ball bearing in that. Maybe reduce the drudgery. Maybe improve the design better. Make a gearbox maybe. So what are we saying? I saw this tree in Kangra, Himachal, during our Shodhyatra. I used to take my students also in Himalaya. And I asked this tree, what happened? Why did you do? Sir, I was not supposed. He said, dear friend, I was not supposed to branch. I did branch. I made it into a parallel stem. That's very interesting, very clever of you. I asked myself, I'm speaking to you. Some cells in my body are going through mutation. Thank God they are not cancerous. So I can continue to talk to you. What is this property of nature? Self-correcting, self-design. those cells which are defective are being bypassed, are being repaired, are being rejected, are being rejuvenated. Now, if we can develop solutions where learning is involved so that they continue to become better and better, a knife which becomes sharper with cutting. Can you imagine that kind of a knife? One which becomes sharper, doesn't become blunt. That is the kind of institution we need to create for development, where they will learn, and every year our unit cost may go down slightly because of innovation. We become more efficient. We learn and we share. And one person's mistake makes everybody else learn. We share our mistakes. We share our blunders, for that matter. Why not? Why shouldn't we do that? So the question is, we don't only share our achievements, we also share our mistakes, and that creates an environment where learning becomes faster. When learning becomes faster, progress becomes faster. That's the principle of society, of a sustainable society. This is of Arunachal Pradesh, Zero District. And this is a machine that he designed, Laigi Gat. How many machines did he make? Very few, hardly any, just one. Why can't we support such innovators to make more so that drudgery can be reduced? This is the traditional way of flattening the bamboo for making mats and roof and all of that. Another example of empathetic innovation or a Samvedanshilta. This girl saw that walker her grandfather couldn't use walker on a step. She gave an idea. Our team developed it. When you go down, our team and I have developed it, National Innovation Foundation. When you go down, the legs become taller. When you go up, legs become shorter. This was licensed to a company. She was one of the youngest person who got royalty and entrepreneurship. Children can be problem solvers. Children can solve problems. Another kid said, several kids from different parts of the country saw that when we sit before the computer, our posture is not right. Sometimes I'm leaning back, sometimes I'm leaning forward, and I'm not putting my back like this. If I'm not sitting properly, it will sense my posture, give a message. Sit properly, I will not let you do work. Who are talking about these problems? Children are talking about. Can we work with these children? Can we work with these communities? Look at this. How many different ways they're using energy? 4 layers, 1, 2, 3, and on the top there's a seed bed. This is the wood which they, in Meghalaya, they treat it. When they cure the wood, it becomes stronger for trolleys that they use for transportation. Here is a firewood. In Cherrapunji, which has the highest rainfall in the world, you need to dry the food. Here you have meat and cheese on the top here. What a powerful way of conserving energy. In our kitchens, all the heat above the gas goes waste. And we need it in our kitchen. Learning from these people. We need to save energy. They know how to save energy. They have not learned anything from them. So a change not monitored, the change not desired. I'm coming to the last part of the presentation. How do we ask those questions which have not been asked? And therefore, we are not bringing about the change that we need to bring about. And we are not bringing about the change that is to be brought about faster. Even if we are bringing out, it's very slow. How do we increase the speed of the change? Maybe by asking ourselves, having a stronger indicators, monitoring ourselves more rigorously. We need to be accountable ourselves, isn't it? We want every institution in society to be accountable. We want government to be accountable. We want donors to be accountable. We want everybody to be accountable. But we don't want to be accountable ourselves. Not enough, I would say. So how do we improve? So for example, one of the indicators I think we should all incorporate is download to upload ratio. Every institution, how much content, how much knowledge, experiential knowledge, not just theoretical knowledge, not just verbosity, not just rhetoric, experiential knowledge which has an ability to improve the practice of some work that I'm doing in with my community. How much did we share? How many words, how many blogs? And did it get read? Did we share in local language so that people can change? So how do we create that? I will not go into detail, but just saying to say that when we look at innovation, sensing unmet need, we have inertia on one side, initiative on the other side. It doesn't require too much effort to convert inertia into initiative. That's how we could mobilize hundreds of thousands of innovations in our country. Having walked 6,000 kilometers in the country, there's never a chance that we did not discover creative solutions. Recently, we went from 4th August to 11th August. I was in Amreli, one part of Gujarat. We got 26 different innovations in 5 days. It was possible because people were generous and sharing their solutions. So it is important that we try to share what we know and bring those solutions around. And continuous improvement. How will continuous improvement take place unless I share? I cannot learn only from my own mistakes. I should learn from others' mistakes. And therefore, we redefine our goals, repurpose our tools, redesign our solutions, recalibrate our indicators and values, rejuvenate our instruments, and recontextualize ourselves. Then there will be transformation and social innovations will take place. So I would say that we should also be inclusive over space, sector, season, social segments, skills and structural governance, accessible solutions, affordable solutions, and available solutions. Supply chains are very important. We don't deliver solutions in time and at cost that people can afford, then they're no good. They may lie on our shelves. So we did an experiment in Gyan recently. Last year, about 200 schools during the lockdown, we sent seeds to these schools to grow nutrition gardens. And the question was, children are not in schools. Who did you give the vegetables? So they shared. Somebody gave it to pregnant women. Somebody gave it to sick people. Somebody gave it to children. And this year, when we shared this experience, people started asking for seed. Around 800 schools from Northeast to Kerala to Kashmir have asked seeds from Gyan, and we have sent free a packet of 13 seeds. Grow them. And when children come to school, show them. And if you don't have ground, grow it on the roof. Teacher did that without our telling them. So this became an accessible solution. We democratized. Many of them made their own seed. Now nutrition gardens are growing like anything, without much support from outside. Just seeds are being shared. So there can be sometimes very low cost solutions to the problem and can be democratized. Their learning can be democratized, and let there be demand-driven process of diffusion. We're not asking you to do it. They're asking us to send us seeds. And they share the photograph. Today we got the seed, they send a photograph. Now we have planted, they send the photograph of the sprouted seedling. And then they send us, of course, the photographs of the growth of them. So this is the triangle that in 97, when we set up Gyan, we realized that there's a need for making this triangle happen: innovation, investment, enterprise. I may have innovation, you have investment, somebody else will set up an enterprise. Not necessarily the same person should do all the three things. Innovations could be technological, institutional, educational. Investment can be intellectual, material, financial. Enterprise can be economic, social, cultural, ecological. And we create this golden triangle of Gyan that I'm talking about, where I'm sitting at the moment just now. So it will be very important. I mean, and we invite you all. We had a micro venture innovation fund. You have heard about microfinance. Microfinance is for goods and services for which market exists. Macro venture innovation fund is for goods and services for which market does not yet exist. There was no concept of micro venture finance when we set up this first time in 2003 at NIF. Now, last year we worked with the small scale industries development bank of India. For 1 year they gave us grant. Doesn't matter. We funded people from Manipur making a lady Vijay Shanti making fabric out of lotus stem fiber, or Varghese in Karnataka making straw pipes for drinking from the fallen leaves of coconut. And women are being trained and given machines to do that. So all over the country, we finance those innovations which generated jobs. Generally, we gave a bias. We were having a bias where women were involved in one way or the other, either as a worker or as an innovator. And it worked very well. It worked very well. So distributed creativity is a network leadership. I will just give an example of how people have to overcome the lack of smartphones. So Ashok Bhai and his team in North Gujarat used cable TV network and reached more than 20,000 children. Balaji Jadhav did something interesting. He discovered that their parents have ordinary phone, feature phone, not a smartphone. And there's a system of conference call. 10 students can be taken in one conference call. There were 40 students to be taught. 4 calls, and the whole class is included. 4 calls. And the children were included. What is the cost of this innovation? Very little. Then he collected these students' stories and shared them. We gave him her HB and Kriya Award, HB and CRIAA Award, Creativity and Inclusive Innovation Award. We started it last year. We got 2,500 entries from 87 countries that we reviewed, and gave 14 awards, one of which was to Bharati Jadhav for this such an inclusive, low-cost, affordable solution, overcoming the injustice and inequity of educational system of online education, which only reached the people who had smartphone or internet. 50% children were out of the educational system. This fellow, an assistant teacher from Maharashtra, overcome that problem, and they reached. So there are different kinds of solutions that have been found. So we have innovation competition for Ignited Mind for children, and we have HB and Kriya. Now the date has been extended to November end. For any adult can send innovation for HB and Kriya at gyan.org, HB and Kriya at gyan.org. And for children, Ignited Mind at honeybee.org. And these competitions are open to anybody. Anybody can send their ideas. We invite all of you to help us reach those creative people in our society who have solved problems. All the databases are open. I will not go much into that, but please do look up these databases and see if you can help us reach. We have built a database with UNDP, grid.undp.org.in. German collaboration with UNDP Innovation Acceleration Lab Network has created Innovation Acceleration Lab in 113 countries, 91 labs. And I and Anamika, CEO of Gyan, taught a course to these students, missed these professionals of these labs, management of inclusive innovation for social transformation. And this database was made with UNDP Delhi. So what are we saying? Please create clubs of innovation. Search, spread, celebrate. Invite innovators to your meetings. Let them share their stories with you and sense the unmet need. These are the 4 steps. Very simple to remember. Search, spread, celebrate, and sense the unmet need. There are different kinds of solutions. I will not go more. I'll close here by saying learning, leveraging, linking, and legitimization. All the 4 steps are important. If you miss any one, then learning will not be complete or will not help the organization. The network that you are creating, all of you are meeting as a part of network. The power of your network lies in learning from each other, in leveraging these innovations, creating actionable plan as to, okay, this idea I like, I'm going to implement it. And then make a commitment to yourself and share with everybody else. I will report to you what I did with the innovation. And you might even improve that idea. Derivative innovation, as we call it. Then you link it. Link the people with whom you're working with other stakeholders, investors, and techniques, and legitimize it. Influence the policy even when need arises. And that's how we will realize that small is scattered is diverse. Diversity breeds creativity. Compassion triggers innovation. Thank you so much.
Just now we have section Thank you. We have session of question answer. We have 15 minutes. If anyone wants to.
Simran has raised hand. She can ask a question. Yeah, go ahead. Speak loudly.
Sir, first of all, extremely thankful to yourself for a wonderful session. It was really pleasure to listening to you. You have sensitized us what was expected more than the expectation. Thank you so much. You have some vast experience and you are known for your visualization. So question lies here. In the era of blind urbanization, in the era of high mechanization like artificial intelligence, robotics, where you are seeing that we will take a pause and we will think seriously that what is the sustainable development is in real. So just we want to understand from your wide range of experience, wide range of learning and your visualization. Thank you so much. I am from Vishwa Kendra, Udasan. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, friend. I must only say quickly that we need new technologies, no doubt, wherever they are required. But we should remember that the gap between those who use internet in a smartphone and all other tools versus those who have no access to even an ordinary phone or a feature phone or have maximum feature phone, this gap cannot be bridged by artificial intelligence. This gap cannot be bridged by modern tools of Zoom or whatever other platform that you create of online education. In fact, all the tools that we develop are widening the gap because we are not developing solutions which will reach these people. So I would say fundamental requirement is that we try to bridge the gap at the bottom of the economic pyramid. And then as the gap, one gap is met, our aspiration will rise. Second gap is met, our aspiration will rise further. And this aspirational ladder will lead to incorporation of new solutions in our life. But if you ask me to visualize a very advanced solution for a problem that I have not even moved one step or two steps forward, then it will not work. To give you an example, we were in a village in Shodhyapta and Kutch, and I was talking about why we should use herbal pesticide and not chemical pesticide. The farmer said, after listening to me for half an hour, he had wisdom, I have knowledge. He said, sir, what you have told us, we have understood. I said, what have I told you? You have told us that all the plants which animals don't eat are potential source of pesticide. Can you imagine? In one line, he summarized what I took half an hour to talk about. Now, this wisdom that what do you need for controlling pest? Toxicity. Why don't animals eat these plants? Because they're toxic. Why do I need to buy toxicity from the market? Why can't I make my own pesticide? Make an extract of these plants and spray. So these are kind of wisdom that exists. Now, you don't have to have costly solutions to solve complex problems. Please understand. A chemical pesticide is a complex solution, it's a costly solution. These were actually derived from nerve gases that were used in the Second World War. We need to use less toxic solutions which are safer for the predators and for the honeybees and for all of them. Nature provides us those solutions. What is the harm in using them? Even Government of India is now encouraging organic farming. So it be. So I would say that we should, and we will move towards solutions that are affordable. Doesn't matter what complexity they involve. The issue is not how modern my tool is. The issue is whether it is cutting the problem rightly. You can have modern machine and if it doesn't stitch because there's no power, then the cloth will remain unstitched. And at that time, manual machine will help. Manual sewing machine will help. You can bring technology, but please make it adjustable to my context. Thank you. Simran had a question. Simran, I saw your hand raised. Please go ahead.
So that wasn't a question, that was just an applause reaction because thanks for the valuable insights and it was a great learning. So thank you.
Simran, so what would you change? Which assumption of yours will change today, if any?
I think youth is the leader for tomorrow, and we should start from today itself. And as Gandhi stated, change is where, I mean, be the change you want to see. So I think all of us, and you rightly enunciated that networking is the main key. So I think I will go with it that we should use this exercise of networking and bring together these energies and develop new solutions.
I'm going to say something you will not mind, I hope. I went to your website.
Yes,
Wanted to look at databases of solutions. Didn't find it. You get my point? I'm not criticizing you. Please don't get me wrong. I want to challenge you that, look, take a step today. And you have such a good network of institutions. I mean, if Vrindavan had not requested me, how would I reach you? Isn't it? So I appreciate that you have people who you want to seek ideas from anybody and everybody, isn't it? You're inviting good people, therefore. So I see your hunger for learning. That I see. I'm only saying, convert that into an institutional platform so that lessons learned are shared widely, not just from experts, but also from grassroots level, from the people. I hope you will think about it. Don't commit anything. Just think about it. I'm sure if you think about it, energy from within will force you to do it. My hope.
we will definitely endeavor to follow this. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So thank you, sir.
Good evening, sir. I'm Dr. Jayakumar from Chennai, and very insightful, thought-provoking thing. And you mentioned so many innovators But I want to know, sir, so many innovators, why they're not able to scale up at large level because they remain as innovation celebrated only in local life. Second thing, I also think I find Indian the idea is celebrated so much and the focus is so much on idea, not on the business plan. Take the idea of the next level. What should be the solution we should be implementing as an organization to make startup or every innovator pays equal attention to the business plan more than the idea itself? Your views on this?
There are two questions that you have asked. One, why is diffusion slower? And second, how can entrepreneurial process speed up the innovation? Answer to first is that some innovations have diffused very widely. They crop varieties. There's a variety Harman Sharma developed for apple, which grows in the plain. So in Delhi, you have apples growing, which was unthinkable earlier. From Himachal Pradesh, he developed that variety. And I have diffused it in about 21 states, including tribal areas, many areas. Now, if they can have the apple in their own backyard, they will obviously get more nutrition and at affordable level. So there are examples where some innovations have diffused very widely. HMT variety of paddy developed by our famous farmer from Chandrapur. He developed this variety. Now it has gone to 7 states, 100,000 hectares, acres, and very successful. There are many such solutions that have diffused, but many solutions have remained localized, partly because of lack of demonstrations, lack of visibility to the people that need them, a lack of funds for that. That's one reason. Secondly, some solutions are niche specific. You go to a garden and you find only one flower growing there. Whole garden is full of one flower. Would you like to stay there for long? You will stay in a garden which has multiple flowers, different kinds of flowers. We need diversity. We need innovations which diffuse widely, but we'll also need innovations which are localized. In Dhimaji, we found that water has very high iron content. If anybody develops a filter, we have not yet developed it much, but whenever develop a filter, it may diffuse about 20,000, 30,000, 50,000 pieces only. Big companies may not set up such a filter design manufacturing plant because they don't want to work for small market. We will have to set up small enterprises, non-exclusive license, distributed entrepreneurship. That is what Gandhiji wanted. So I would say that we need risk fund, first of all, move beyond the microfinance, get into micro venture fund that we created in 2003, and now we have continued last year. Set up such funds which are risky funds, where if it works, if the enterprise succeeds, then you recover. But if it doesn't succeed, you write off. You take risk. The learning that you make it is like a fees you pay to the people for teaching you how to convert that innovation into enterprise. They are struggling with their life and you're learning from it. So you are paying a fees for that. So think of that. Finally, I would say that your network, for example, could be a very useful partner for us to diffuse innovations. Please look up our databases. Write to us what is lacking in your region. Maybe we will be able to suggest some solution. And again, the division will pick up then. In each of your project, at least implement one innovation. We have multi-purpose food processing machine, we have incense making machine, we have cow dung pot making machine. Instead of using polythene bag, you can use cow dung pot for growing seedling. There's so many solutions that we have. We have 5,000 rupees incense making machine, and we have 40,000 rupees incense stick making machine, depending upon how much productivity you want, for how many people, at what cost. Ralte in Mizoram has developed 5,000 rupees machine, which both make the sticks, makes the strips and convert the strips into sticks. Both the things, same machine can do that. So we have simple solution, extremely affordable solution. We also have costlier solution, depends upon what the context is, who is funding, for how many people it is being funded. So please do engage with the database that we have and help us to diffuse this longer. I mean, you are all, that's why I saw a line was there in the first slide, be a bee. VAB, all of you can be a cross-pollinator of ideas, and I hope that you will be. And this opportunity that I have got, thanks to Vrindavan Community Center, Education Center, that I've been able to meet you, and KAS, thanks to them, that this partnership can grow. I'll be very happy if these innovations reach the people with whom you work, so that their drudgery is reduced, their productivity is increased. Naturally, their income will also increase that. But we must remember that there is a risky proposition. Some people will fail. And we should accept failure as eloquently as we talk about our successes. We should not mask them. We should not hide them. We should talk about them with same pride that we talk about our successes. Then we will make progress.
सर मुझे कोई प्रश्न नहीं, क्वेश्चन नहीं पूछना है, लेकिन गांधी दर्शन पढ़ाते हुए एक वाक्य याद आया कि गांधी जी को एक पत्रकार ने पूछा था कि आजाद भारत को क्या चुनौती होगी, कौन सी चुनौती फेस करनी पड़ेगी। तो गांधी जी ने कहा था कि पढ़े लिखे लोगों की संवेदनहीनता। आपने संवेदना की बात की तो मुझे ये वाक्य याद आ गया कि उन्होंने कहा था कि जो पढ़े लिखे लोग हैं वो संवेदनहीन हो रहे हैं, किसी लोगों को नहीं समझ रहे हैं। और दूसरी बात उन्होंने कही कि अमीर लोग अगर स्वैच्छिक गरीबी अपनाएंगे, वॉलंटरी पॉवर्टी एक्सेप्ट करेंगे, तो भारत विकास कर सकेगा। थैंक यू सर। सर इफ यू आर
So it was very enlightening to hear you today. I am Dayanand Tandon and I am from Uttar Pradesh. And bringing Gandhi here with the Khadi Commission, Khadi Code, innovative machines, I have been associated with a lot of such activities and usage also, and implementation of these machines at different levels in Uttar Pradesh. Our organization 30 years old and we have worked into it. I was very carefully and very intently listening to what you were saying. And from there, you talking about the various innovations, I might have come across an institution in Allahabad and Punjab where we have the regional innovative machines and all. My first question is, why did these innovations and why these innovations could not come up upscale? Where is the lack of will from the government point? That's question number one, sir. The question number two is, you also talked about the organic and the kitchen garden and the toxicity of the produce and animal not eating and harming the animals and the human being as well. I was waiting for some comments from you coming for the government policies on this. See, if you promote and if you give subsidy for urea, that means the government is promoting urea. What is the government doing? If had I been the Prime Minister, I would have, first of all, if I don't want it, then it could happen in just one order. So I was expecting something, so if you could throw some light on this. Why is the government silent on this? What all good that has happened could happen and sustainable could happen, because the sustainable development goals are not ours, yours, it's everybody's. And the government initiated it. It was from the millennium. So why is the government not really taking, I should say, sensible steps towards it? So please.
Thank you. I couldn't get your name, but what's the name you said?
I am Dayanand Tandon.
Mr. Tandon. Dayanand Tandon. Okay. Dayanand ji, मैं इतना ही कहूँगा. I will only say this much, that if you look at any textbook of school, how many lessons do you find describing the stories of these innovators who may not be educated enough but have solved problems that our engineers and our IITs couldn't solve? You don't find too many stories, isn't it? So the first problem that arises in changing the mindset of the whole country and probably for the whole world is that unless we incorporate these lessons in our educational system, we bring these innovators to the classroom, let them tell their stories to the children. I would like to, I would not mind if nothing much happens now, but I will feel bad if nothing happens in future, because that will jeopardize our sustainability prospect for next 100 years. So I would suggest that we focus more on building capacities such that we don't repeat the acts of omission and commission of the past. Otherwise, we'll keep barking the wrong tree. That's one. Secondly, don't make scale the enemy of sustainability. I am repeating that answer which I gave earlier, that not all innovations will diffuse widely. Some will remain localized because of the niche specificity. For a valley, for a particular ecological system, they are suitable. And these will diffuse there, and we should accept that, just as some others we should diffuse. Third point is that diffusion, rumors spread very widely. Film actors' stories, everybody knows which film actor is having what affair with which actor. But innovation stories don't diffuse as widely because of the reason that all of us, you included, are part of the chain of that communication chain. If each one of us, and I'm making a very earnest request to you, if each one of you pick up one innovation from our database and share in your social network every day, one innovation, whichever you like. There are thousands of them. I think we will achieve more impact than what we are achieving today. We need lots and lots of voluntary effort. And I can assure you that when we start talking about, change begins from oneself. We need to bring about change in my own system. I should ask, how many innovations did I share? Is it a legitimate question, Mr. Tandon? If it is a legitimate question, and if I have not shared too many, then I'm part of the problem. Please don't mind my saying it. I'm not accusing you. I'm just I'm finding fault with my system, with myself, that I'm not able to convince you and others of your kind that please let us all be part of this chain, which will diffuse solutions every day to those who need them. And then we will go to the next step. We'll do experiments. We will test them. We will do a trial. Then we will do demonstration. And then there'll be adoption. All the 4 stages will have to be gone through. We have to create awareness. We have to do trial. We have to do evaluation. We have to do adoption. But we are not moving fast enough on this chain. Please expect us. We are a very small organization. Honeybee Network is comprising mainly of volunteers. Jan has about maybe a dozen people. Sashti may have around another dozen people. We are very small people. But the impact that we have tried to create by sharing our knowledge is global. People around the world know that we have so much innovation to share, not just from India, from around the world. And that's why we started HBN Kriya Award, which we'll be giving in November, most likely. And we are trying, everybody in the government probably would know, I have been going to academy at Mussoorie to teach IS officers from 92 onwards, 1992 onwards, I've been going there. But slowly and slowly, change comes. It doesn't happen immediately, but I will not lose my hope. I'm a very optimistic person by definition. I'm very optimistic. I'm very hopeful that some of you will become allies in this process. And once you become our ally, we'll make faster progress. That's all I hope. That's the reason I'm here today. I'm very optimistic. I'm very hopeful that we will all collectively overcome our inertia and become an actor in solving problem. वो जो ऑटोनॉमी और एजेंसी का संबंध है, जो स्वांतः सुखाय के लिए जो सृजनशीलता का अपनाने के तरीका है, संवेदना से सृजनशीलता स्वांतः सुखाय के लिए, for my own happiness I should do that, not for anybody else. I'm not obliging. मेरा प्रोजेक्ट इसलिए नहीं करना है, मुझे करना है क्योंकि मुझे खुशी मिलती है, because I'm happy, I feel good about it, and I hope some of you will do that. Please, and this time that I got to meet you virtually today will be well spent. And I'm very optimistic. I'm sure you will not fail.
My name is Thomas, and I'm from Vishwa Yuva Kendra in Delhi. And first of all, it is really a privilege to hear you, but it is really sad not to have you personally, physically here, because it would have been really on a different level. I think the talk would have been on a very different level. But I think there is a need to have people like you on the grassroots, not just one person like you, but I think multiple hundreds and thousands of people, you on the ground. I think that is when things will happen, because we all talk, but there is very little happening. But my question to you, sir, is like 2 of our eminent directors here, they spoke about upscaling. I'm 32 years old. I'm a young person. When I see India, why does everything, a local small project, why does it have to be upscaled? Why can't it be just like that? because India is all about numbers. I think everybody is looking for numbers, one project and we want to replicate it all around the country. But I think it's not possible. Every geographical area has its own restrictions, limitations. So why do we as NGOs, why do we always look at upscaling of a project, and why don't we let a project be like it where it is? That is my question, sir. And because
I will tell you a Gandhian story. Gandhiji, once students went to him and said, we want some advice, how do we work in rural development? Gandhiji had never worked in rural development. He was an urban person. He had never practiced anything in rural areas. He was advocate. The students insisted, "Nahi, aapko batana padega. Please tell us." He said, "Okay, I don't know what you should do, but I will tell you what I will do if I were to work in rural areas." He said, "Okay, tell us." He said, "First, I will decide where I want to work. So let's say I've decided some villages. Then I will decide in which sector I want to start. So let's say I want to work in dairy. Then I will decide, I will find out the households which have the most productive cattle, whose cows give maximum milk. I will sit down in their house from morning till evening and write down everything that they do." The lady does. कितना खिलाती हैं, कैसे खिलाती हैं, कितनी बार हाथ फेरती हैं, पानी कितना पिलाती हैं, how much. So entire morning to evening, I will write down the practices they follow. Then I will sit with the average owner of the average producer, whose cows give less milk. I will document the same. Bridging the gap is my plan of work. Bridging the gap between the best, the most productive person in the village, and the average person becomes my plan of work. I agree with you, dear friend, that if each one of us, in whichever sector we are working, in whichever villages we are working, identify the most efficient producer, most successful producer, person who keeps the maximum hygiene in the cattle yard, and then follow the practices that they are following and spread it among the average people, our first step is met, that we will follow differentiated models of success. So what are we replicating? We are replicating a heuristic, a pedagogic tool of learning from within the community and spreading it around, and then replicating this process of experimentation and innovation. So you have made a very good point, and you are young, but you have made a very wise statement that yes, we must scale up, not the solution, but the process of generating solution. That must be scaled up. Every community must experiment. Every community must identify the most outstanding achievers of the village, whether in teaching, whether, one village, my colleague went in Idar, Chetan, and he told me that story yesterday. He had 23 children in the school. He has 83 children this year. What happened? It was a Muslim village, and the prayer was Hindu. And the people said, we will not send our children to drink only Hindu prayer. You should have our. So he went to Maulvi and asked, okay, give me whatever prayers that you think I should have in this school. So he gave some 6 different hymns and translated them and said, this is what you should do in the school. He said, all right, out of 6 days, 4 days I will do this. 2 days, can I do the other prayer? He said, all right. So 6 days, 4 days he started following Muslim prayer, 2 days Hindu prayer, and children started coming. Then one of them said, I won't like my girls to do any cultural function. At this time, slowly and slowly, one of them became Radha, another became something else. They had. So what has this teacher done? This teacher has incorporated the principles that the community leaders advised and overcome a barrier. And now all those children are coming to school. 500 children are coming to school without spending money. Now, we don't, I'm not saying you replicate the same model everywhere. Similar solutions will have to be found by teachers for inclusive education, inclusivity at all levels, across all religions, all communities, all castes. And I think this is possible. I certainly believe that this is possible. Our society is inclusive. Our society doesn't believe in distinctions. Whatever may be the aberrations, I will ignore them. It's a transitory phase. Eventually, our society will work together and live together. Because that's the way we are. So I think the good point that you made, dear friend, I missed your name, but you made a very good point. We should scale up the spirit of experimentation, spirit of learning from the bottom, learning from the people. And that spirit must be replicated to every place. That I will scale up. Not necessarily the solution, though sometimes I will replicate the solution also, but I will be less interested in just looking at success of my work or Honeybee Network by replication of the solution, but I will look at how many people follow the same approach of finding out the learning, experimenting people. Every community has experiment. In your own family, someone will be there who will do odd things, who will try out things, who will not follow the trend. We need to look for such people who are by temperament experimenters, who try things out. They take risk, and we need to learn from them and spread it. Thank you so much.
बहुत अच्छा लगा यहाँ सुनकर। हमेशा विद्यापीठ में तो आपको सुनते रहते हैं, लेकिन यहाँ पर अलग व्यू में, अलग सिचुएशन में आपको सुना। आपका बहुत बहुत आभार। आभार तो नहीं मानती हूँ, आप तो हमारे परिवार के।
बिल्कुल सही कहा आपने।
आनंद व्यक्त करती हूँ। मैं अभी इनवाइट करती हूँ। आई एम कॉलिंग डॉक्टर नंदाबेन परी, but I want to give introduction of her. And also,
I can leave then. I can leave now. I can leave now. Thank you so much.
They know, but when she is president of India section, Women's International League for Peace and Freedom, Geneva, which was founded in 1915, the first World War, and Gandhiji addressed this organization in 1932. She is president of that organization, and she visited Geneva. Other introduction you all of you know very well. Dr. Nanda for a lot of things.
It has been a long session, but very interesting session. And I think we are starting with a very positive note and with a lot of encouragement in our openings, in our thoughts, openings in our actions, and openings in our interpretations. So I'm sure that with this beginning, we will have a wonderful conference for 2 more days. There are very few occasions when we meet physically together. And this time, as mind by saying, we have met 2 years. So obviously, we all are very happy to see each other. And I am so happy to note that almost all the institutions, more than when we decided to do this conference, I had a suspicion in my mind, and I was thinking that this is not going to happen physically. But it has happened and it has been inaugurated. I feel great happiness over it. I thank you all for coming here. I thank CAS who has given us opportunity to be together, and particularly to the women for being here with us for 3 days on this important discussion. Both the lectures, even Dr. Ramirez, he has also raised some of the issues very important. I would have liked to list out all those in this, but I think now time doesn't permit. But the slogan that he has given and that we will keep in mind for all these 2 days is leave no one behind. And this is the major plan on which we are going to discuss. Corona is a wake-up call, as everybody is saying, and this we have heard this wake-up call. Whether we awaken or we still go in the sleep, that only these 2 days will tell. Anil Gupta ji, I don't know how to thank him, but he has been very forceful in his ideas and very innovative in his ideas. He is working in this field since many years, and I really thank him for being with us. His physical presence would have made a lot of difference, but anyway, he has been with us for 2 hours. That's a great thing. So I thank him also, and I think everyone who has helped this to happen. And with this, I think we are closing this session. And there are some announcements.
Simran is going to
Simran
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here. We are very glad to welcome you all at Udaipur, and thanks to all the virtual participants as well. We have a couple of announcements for the people who are with us on site. Firstly, the cocktail will be near the pool. Now the question is, there are a lot of pools, which pool do I mean? The pool which is one level up the reception. So at the bar, at the pool side, near the bar, we have the cocktail, followed by dinner, which is at the restaurant at the very same level. Secondly, tomorrow we have the directors meet at 9 AM. So we have to change. So we have the directors meet tomorrow at 9 AM. I would request all the directors to kindly meet in the lounge. The lounge is just behind this venue, and you have to enter from this outside, this area outside. The third thing is we will have a group photograph tomorrow in the first tea break. Then at 10 AM we meet for the conference, and those were the announcements for today. Thank you.
And then I have a big announcement.
Yes, please. For the virtual participants, we will try to cater them with a good photograph of pool. I hope that suffices for now, but next time we hope to see you as well physically. Thank you.
Sorry for coming again, but I just got to acknowledge the technical help that is being given by this team, and particularly Mr. Sundar. So I thank the entire team and Mr. Sundar as well.
Thank you, Sundar. Thank you, Manavendra. There is a very surprising announcement, and we are sitting with a very charming birthday boy. So, who is the birthday boy that I am going to announce like this? जिंदगी के दौर में चलना ही जिनका काम है, जिंदगी के दौर में चलना ही जिनका काम है, जिससे मिलो दिल से मिलो यही जिनका पैगाम है, जियो तो सबके लिए यही जिनका मुकाम है, आए मनाए जन्म दिवस उन्हीं का जिनका मैं भाई नाम है, मैं भाई हैप्पी बर्थडे टू यू। हम पूरे सदन की तरफ से हम ये ईश्वर से प्रार्थना करते हैं कि आप हमेशा ऐसे हंसते रहें, मुस्कुराते रहें, गुनगुनाते रहें। और दो पंक्तियां और मैं रखते हुए केक कटिंग सेरेमनी के लिए मैं सिमरन को कहूंगा कि आप लीड करेंगे। थोड़ा सा हमने केक का व्यवस्था हम लोगों ने किया है, सब लोग मिलकर, तो वो हम लोग केक भी खाएंगे और बर्थडे भी मनाएंगे। बस दो शब्द में मैं भाई के खिदमत में और पेश कर रहा हूँ कि आपका जो व्यक्तित्व है एक निराला व्यक्तित्व है, हमेशा सबको हंसना हंसाना और जिंदगी में चाहे लाल हाथापाई हो उसमें हमेशा चुनौती को पार करना जो आपकी शख्सियत रही है, उसी पर दो पंक्ति मैंने बनाया है। अगर अच्छा लगे तो सदन इतनी ताली बजाएंगे कि दिल्ली तक आवाज आनी चाहिए। तन पर खोलिए, मन पर खोलिए, तन पर बोले, मन पर बोले, सपने सारे हो साकार, हंसी खुशी से भरा हो जीवन, इंद्रधनुष सा सुंदर हो संसार। मैं लाइट के पास आता हूँ, इसको सुनाकर रहूंगा। तन पर बोले, मन पर बोले, सपने सारे हो साकार, हंसी खुशी से भरा हो जीवन, इंद्रधनुष सा हो संसार। बसंत ऋतु सा आपका जीवन, बसंत ऋतु सा आपका जीवन, पूर्णों सा महकता सवेरा हो, चांद सितारों से जन्म आनंद, सुख समृद्धि का सतत बसेरा हो। आपकी मुस्कुराहट हो सदा सलामत, हम सब की यही है कामना, सुख समृद्धि से भरा हो जीवन, हम सभी के तरफ से शुभकामना, शुभकामना, शुभकामना।
एंड कर दो, रिकॉर्डिंग स्टॉप रिकॉर्डिंग स्टॉप।